The message arrived at 11 p.m., a time when nothing good ever comes through a glowing screen. I was sitting in my dimly lit kitchen, a roll of decorative tape stuck to my wrist and a pair of cheap souvenir bracelets scattered across the table. I'd just finished packing the kids' travel pouches, each one labeled carefully with their favorite colors. I wanted everything to feel magical for them, memorable. I didn't know that the only thing they'd remember was that I wasn't there. My son's name flashed across my phone. For half a second, I felt warmth. Then the words appeared. Mom, you won't be joining us. Tanya wants it to be just her side of the family this time. Thanks for handling the bookings. Just her family. My thumb hovered over the screen as if touching the words long enough might change them. I read them again and again. And so the quietness of the house began to feel heavier, like the walls were listening. A second message followed. It's nothing personal. It's just easier. Easier. A word people use when they don't have the courage to say, "You're not wanted." My chest tightened. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. I placed the phone face down, its screen still faintly lighting the wood beneath it, and stared at the small travel bag I had packed for myself that afternoon. Inside it were 2 sundresses, a wide-brimmed hat. I dusted off from the back of my closet, and framed picture of my late husband. I'd imagined setting that picture on the dinner table during our family night at the villa, telling the grandkids stories about their grandfather, how he once burned his feet sprinting across hot sand, how he sneezed uncontrollably whenever sunscreen touched his nose. That moment would not exist now. 3 years of planning. 3 years of saving, not loudly, not in a way that drew attention. Quiet saving. Sacrifices no one knew about, because mothers are taught to swallow hardship like vitamins. I gave up cable, skipped dinners out, and took a small online tutoring job to earn extra money. Every dollar had gone into my travel fund. The same fund that paid for the villa, the flights, the island activities, the airport transport, everything. All done so they could have a beautiful memory. Yet here I was, uninvited to the memory I built. My throat tightened as I opened my laptop. The screen flickered awake, illuminating the one folder I'd been opening almost daily these past months. Vacation master plan. I clicked it open. Flight confirmations. Villa instructions. The schedule for the luau. Printed tags I made for the children's luggage. My lists were crisp, organized, hopeful. I clicked on my bank portal next, the one linked to every booking. The account balance blinked up at me. 2018 $22.16. So many quiet sacrifices summed up in one line of numbers. But what struck me hardest wasn't the money. It was the realization that I had poured myself into something nobody cared to share with me. I stood from the table slowly, feeling both older and clearer than I had in years. Something inside me, something soft that had stretched and stretched, finally reached its limit. I walked to the den, sat down, and opened a blank document. My fingers hovered over the keys. Instead of writing to my son, I typed a different kind of list. Carol hasn't had a vacation since her husband's passing. Francine raised her grandkids with no thank you. Nora once said nobody had taken a picture of her on a beach in her entire life. Denise drives everyone everywhere but never gets invited anywhere. Women who understood the quiet ache of being overlooked. Women like me. I saved the list. Then I returned to my bank page. A button waited at the bottom of the screen. Pause all linked transactions. My hand didn't tremble when I clicked it. Not out of revenge, not out of spite, but because I finally understood my worth. But freezing the account was just the first crack in the facade. The next morning, I learned something far worse. Proof that they had never intended for me to be part of this trip from the very beginning. I woke earlier than usual the next morning, not because of an alarm, but because my thoughts refused to stay quiet. I kept hearing my son's words, flat, typed, and emotionless. You won't be joining us. Not a conversation, not a discussion. A decision. One they'd made long before pressing send. I made coffee, though it tasted weak no matter how many times I reheated it. I moved around the kitchen with the slow, distracted motions of someone trying not to feel too deeply. Straighten a towel. Wipe an already clean counter. Rearrange the salt and pepper shakers. Anything to avoid the sting. Around noon, I finally sat down at my laptop. I hadn't planned to revisit the travel details, but the travel agency had sent a confirmation titled, Final Itinerary, Guest Manifest Included. Guest Manifest. For most people, that would be an ordinary term. For me, it suddenly felt like a spotlight, a list of who mattered and who didn't. I clicked it open. 8 names appeared. Neat. I'm so noise. Organized. Simple. Nathan. Tanya. Their kids. Tanya's parents. Tanya's sister. Tanya's sister's boyfriend. 8 names. I counted again. Still 8. My name was not missing by accident. It wasn't on a separate page. It wasn't hidden behind a filter. I wasn't there. Not only had they decided not to include me, they had built the entire trip in a way that erased me entirely. Slowly, I scrolled through the details. 8 seats reserved on the flight. 8 late greetings. 8 wristbands for the beachfront dinner. 8 snorkeling kits. 8 welcome packages. Every activity listed 8 participants. It had never been the 9 of us. It had always been the 8 of them. My hand shook slightly as I closed the tab. Not out of sadness this time, but out of something colder. Certainty. This wasn't a last-minute decision. It wasn't Tanya feeling stressed or a casual slip. They had planned every detail without me, while still allowing me to pay for it. My phone buzzed. Tanya. Dot. For a moment, I considered letting it ring, but curiosity outweighed my pride. I answered. Her voice dripped with forced cheerfulness. Hi, Marilyn. We're just finishing our packing. I hope the payment schedule is all lined up for tomorrow. Not a thank you. Not an apology. Not even a basic acknowledgement of the message from the night before. Just logistics. Just assumption. Is there anything you need me to bring? I asked quietly. I don't know why. Maybe a small part of me hoped she'd hear herself and soften. Instead, she laughed lightly. Oh, no. Everything's handled. This trip is really for our side of the family, so you don't have to worry about anything at all. You should take these days to relax. Relax. While they flew off using my money. She continued rambling about sunscreen, matching outfits and airport timing as if I were a travel agent, not the woman who raised the man she married. When she finally hung up, the silence left behind felt strangely sharp, like the click of a door being locked. I walked to my bedroom closet and pulled down my small fireproof lockbox. Inside were my travel fund documents, receipts, authorization, forms, every line filled out in my handwriting. Under account holder, it read, Marilyn Rose Monroe. Under authorized users, it read, none, meaning No one but me could access the account. No one but me could approve charges. No one but me controlled the money they were using to build a vacation I wasn't welcome on. And now, all those linked cards, the flights, the villa, the excursions, sat suspended in limbo, frozen, waiting, waiting for me. For the first time in years, I felt something that wasn't guilt or longing or disappointment. Power. Not cruel power. Not vengeful power. Just the quiet strength of someone who finally understood she didn't have to fund her own erasure. That night, I made myself peppermint tea and sat in my husband's old armchair, what he used to call the lookout. The house was silent, but for once the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full, like the pause before a truth finally reveals itself. And it did. At 7:14 p.m., my son read my message from the previous night. I saw the little scene indicator appear beneath it. He didn't reply. He didn't call. He didn't even pretend to care. That was the moment I knew the freeze was only the beginning. Because the next day, as they headed to the airport full of confidence, I would receive a call that confirmed everything. They had never planned on paying for a single thing themselves. On the morning of their departure, I woke before sunrise, not because I planned to see them off, but because my body had grown used to early mornings filled with planning, scheduling, and preparing a trip I would no longer take. The house was unusually peaceful. No rush, no checklist, no sense of urgency. Just me, my breath, and the faint gray light slipping through the blinds. I made myself oatmeal, though I barely touched it, and sat by the window with my mug warming my hands. According to the itinerary I had memorized by heart, they were supposed to reach the airport around 8:15 a.m. Their flight left at 10:40. They were probably buzzing with excitement, kids bouncing, suitcases rolling, Tanya giving her mother instructions like she was coordinating a small army. And sitting somewhere in that airport was my frozen travel fund, invisible but pulsing quietly beneath every swipe of their credit cards. At 8:27 a.m., my phone rang. It was Nathan. I didn't move. I just let it ring until it faded. A text followed almost immediately. Mom, the card is declining. Are you seeing anything on your end? I placed the phone screen down. The tea kettle whistled gently, and I poured myself a second cup as if nothing extraordinary was happening. Another message buzzed. They're saying it's been declined multiple times. Can you look? We need to check the bags. Still, I didn't respond. It wasn't pettiness. It was clarity, the kind that arrives like a cold wind, sharp and undeniable. They had excluded me without hesitation. They had used my money without guilt. They had treated my generosity as their entitlement. Now they were facing the reality they built. By 8:40, the calls came back to back. I finally flipped the phone over and watched them appear one after another, like a deck of cards being laid out. Tanya calling. Nathan calling. Unknown number. Tanya calling. They were probably at the check-in counter, shuffling nervously while passengers behind them sighed impatiently. I imagined the scene vividly. Tanya's mother clutching her purse, muttering. Her father adjusting his glasses and blaming the airline. The kids asking what was happening. Tanya whispering harshly into her phone, her voice tight and strained. And Nathan, my son, trying to stay calm as everything unraveled. I didn't smile. I didn't feel triumphant. But I didn't feel guilty either. I just felt steady. At 9:02 a.m., a voicemail came in. Nathan's voice trembled, though he tried to hide it. Mom, I don't know what's going on, but if this is about last night, just call me, please. Last night, as if excluding me from a family vacation I paid for was a minor inconvenience. Something easily glossed over once they needed something. I kept my silence. At 9:23 a.m., I received an email from the villa. Your cancellation request has been confirmed. I had made no such request. The system simply recognized that payment authorization had frozen and automatically canceled the reservation, under my authority alone. Then came another email. The airline, the snorkeling tour, the rental car company. One by one, the charges reversed. Every booking unraveled like a thread pulled too tightly. At 10:10 a.m., Nathan sent one last message before boarding. Look, if this is about everything that happened, maybe we didn't handle things right. We're stressed. The kids are upset. We just need you to unlock the account. We can fix this when we're back. When we're back? Not before they left. Not now, when it mattered. Not when the hurt was done. After. When it was convenient. I set the phone aside and stepped outside onto my porch. The breeze smelled faintly of jasmine. A neighbor waved from across the street, unaware that my family was unraveling hundreds of miles away in a crowded airport. As I stood there beneath the soft morning sun, I realized something profound. Sometimes silence isn't avoidance. Sometimes silence is the only way to teach someone what your presence once gave them. By the time they boarded, their vacation was a ghost. No villa, no car, no activities, no dinner reservations. Just a plane carrying disappointment. And I hadn't lifted a single finger. But what I didn't expect was the message waiting for me later that evening. One that revealed just how much deeper their intentions went, and how long they had been planning to use me. That evening, after the airport chaos had finally quieted down, and my phone stopped buzzing like a trapped insect, the house settled into an unusual kind of calm. Not peace exactly. Peace is soft. This was something firmer, clearer, something that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, and for the first time, not being afraid of the height. I made myself a simple dinner and ate slowly, savoring each bite in a way I rarely allowed myself. Usually meals were rushed, squeezed between tasks for other people. But tonight, there were no tasks, no lists, no expectations pulling at my sleeves. It was around 8:45 p.m. when my email chimed. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another refund notification. But the subject line made my stomach tighten. Need to clear something up. From Tanya. I hesitated, then opened it. Her message began politely. Too politely. The kind of polite that masks irritation. Hi, Marilyn. I want to explain a few things before misunderstandings get worse. Damnness. Worse? As if I were the one who had caused harm. I kept reading. Oh, first of all, we never meant to exclude you entirely. We just wanted a more streamlined trip. My parents and sister haven't had a proper vacation in years, and Nathan and I really wanted quality time with them. Quality time. With them. Paid for by me. The next lines hit harder. We were going to tell you eventually that the kids would still FaceTime you from the villa. You'd still be included in that way. Included. As if a blurry phone screen could replace being there. As if I should be grateful to be allowed in through the window instead of the door. But the worst part came next. Also, just to be transparent, some of our friends were planning to join for a day or two. They already booked island activities using the travel fund you set up. We didn't want to overwhelm you with the detail. My pulse stopped for half a beat. They're friends, not family, not even distant relatives. Strangers. Strangers who felt entitled to use the money I had scraped together, dollar by dollar. I scrolled down, reading even slower now. We assumed the travel account was something you created for all of us to use freely. Nathan said you always wanted everyone to enjoy Hawaii the way you and your husband once did. So we thought it wouldn't matter who joined the activities. I leaned back in my chair. They thought it wouldn't matter. They thought my sacrifices were bottomless. They thought my love meant permission. But then came the sentence that revealed everything. Every intention, every assumption, every quiet disrespect. We honestly figured you preferred staying behind. You usually seem overwhelmed at big gatherings, and we didn't want you to feel out of place. There it was. Not truth. Not concern. An excuse dressed like empathy. I read the paragraph again and again. They imagined me overwhelmed, out of place. I wasn't out of place. I was pushed out of place. The final lines were the true purpose of the email. Since everything got canceled, we're hoping you'll unfreeze the account soon. We had to rebook several things out of pocket. It's becoming a financial strain. If you could release the funds tonight, we can try again in a few days. Try again. Without me. Again. They wanted the money restored. Not the relationship. Not the respect. Not the bond. Just the money. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The silence spoke more truth than anything I could write. Instead, I stood and walked to my bookshelf. I reached for the framed photo of my husband. The one where he was laughing so hard the corners of his eyes wrinkled into little suns. I held it against my chest. You warned me, I whispered. He always used to tell me, when you give too much, people forget it was a gift. And that was exactly what had happened. I placed the photo gently back on the shelf and exhaled. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns quickly. This was something colder, cleaner, like ice forming steadily across a lake. A boundary. A new one. One I should have built years ago. But little did I know, the real twist was still coming, because the next morning, someone unexpected showed up at my door, carrying a truth that shattered everything I thought I knew about that family trip. The next morning, I was watering the small patch of roses my husband planted years ago, when I heard a soft knock at the door. Gentle, hesitant, almost apologetic. Not the frantic pounding Nathan had done the previous day. Not Tanya's sharp, hurried tapping. This knock felt unsure. I dried my hands on my apron and opened the door. Standing there was Nora, one of the women I'd listed days earlier. The quiet widow from my church group. The one who whispered her thoughts, like secrets, meant only for the wind. She clutched a folded piece of paper in her hand, and her eyes darted around as if afraid someone would see her. Nora, is everything all right? She looked torn, like someone carrying a truth too heavy for one person. Can I come in? She whispered. Of course. I led her inside, poured her some tea, and waited. She finally placed the folded paper on the table between us. I didn't know if I should tell you, she said. But I couldn't sleep last night. I kept hearing my conscience tell me you deserved to know. She pushed the paper toward me. I know Tanya's sister, she admitted. She works with my niece. Yesterday, she called my niece from the airport in a panic. And she said some things. Things about you. My hands froze above the paper before unfolding it. It was a screenshot. A screenshot of a group chat titled Island Crew. No drama zone. Tree. New drama zone. Names. Tanya. Dot. Tanya's sister. Her parents. Their friends. And my son. Dozens of messages. Plans. Comments. Jokes. I scanned them slowly, feeling my pulse quicken. One message from Tanya hit me like a wooden plank. If we tell her early, she'll want to join. Let's wait until everything is paid for before we say anything. Another from her sister. She's too slow for this trip anyway. Beaches, hikes, the Lua should slow us down. Then from Nathan. Guys, Mom thinks she's coming. Just act normal until the final payment processes. My eyes stung. My chest tightened. But I kept reading. Another message. After the trip, we'll make it up to her with a dinner or something. She likes simple stuff. Simple stuff. As if my entire existence could be mended by a cheap dinner after using the money I had saved for years. Nora reached out, touching my hand gently. I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to see it, but I also didn't want you to keep wondering. I tried to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. I felt a weird mix of heartbreak and relief. Heartbreak at their cruelty, and relief that my instincts had been right all along. After a long silence, I finally inhaled deeply. Thank you, I whispered. For being honest. She nodded. You're not alone in this. Some of us know exactly what it feels like to give everything and be treated like we gave nothing. Her words warmed a part of me I hadn't realized had gone cold. She stayed for nearly an hour. We talked about disappointment, about invisible burdens, about how love, even the deep, mother-shaped kind, can be taken for granted until it breaks. When she left, she hugged me tightly. It had been a long time since anyone held me with sincerity. That afternoon, I made my decision. Not out of retaliation, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. I opened my notebook titled, The Women Who Deserve to Be Seen, and I finalized it. 6 women. I've seen to see one trip. A trip free of manipulation, entitlement, or conditions. A trip built on gratitude, not greed. Over the next few days, I made calls, booked flights, reserved an oceanfront villa, purchased new floral dresses for each woman, arranged welcome baskets filled with small luxuries none of us usually allowed ourselves. When we finally stepped off the plane into the warm island breeze, something inside me eased, like a tight knot finally unraveling. We laughed. We cried. We told stories we'd held inside for years. And on our last night, as waves whispered against the shore, the 6 of us stood in a circle beneath a sky full of stars. I lit the lavender candle, the same one I once intended for my son's family. But this time, its light felt right. It belonged to women who valued me, women who saw me, women who didn't need my money to want my presence. Later, I sat alone at the edge of the water and finally let myself feel the truth. I had not been excluded. I had been redirected. Redirected toward the people who were walking beside me all along. When I returned home, I found a final message from Nathan waiting in my inbox. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to open it. If you've ever carried a family on your back, only to be pushed aside, stay with this channel, because your story deserves to be told. And your dignity deserves to be reclaimed.